The more time you spend on your investments, the worse outcomes you're going to have. Why are we taking on risk that you don't need to take on to achieve the financial goals that you've already built in place?
Simplicity is a competitive advantage because you're just focusing on the strategy you originally decided on.
And you're sticking to it. Welcome to Beyond the First Million. I'm your host, Gideon Drucker, alongside my taller co-host, Jordan Haines. How are we doing today?
I am learning about locks and fish. That's
all right. So let's back up. We're going to back up for a second. So we just had lunch and we ordered for the group that we have here, and we were ordering from a bagel place. And Jordan said, "Yeah, I'll have the fish like last time."
I am not from here.
Immediately, I'm like, they serve fish and chips at this bagel? Like, it made absolutely no sense. And then realized he wanted a lox sandwich with cream cheese, lox, tomato, cucumber, otherwise known as lox or Nova. Either way, nobody in the history of New Jersey has called that fish, but it was pretty good.
But it is fish, right?
I like it. This is where you're like, it's like very agreeable. You go with the flow on this podcast, but like, no, I'm putting my foot down that it is fish. I am correct.
We were about to hit record and everyone decided to tell me that what I said was wrong and I didn't know that.
Right. So now you're feeling bullied by the larger
group. Now I have to fight
the larger group here.
Okay, it is lox. I will refer to smoked salmon as lox from now on.
I'm going to do this from time to time, is just periodically think how I can rile Jordan up. Jordan is the most chill, relaxed person I think I've ever met in my life. All right, let's get into it. I saw this on LinkedIn. Sometimes as planners, other planners write things and you're like, okay, well, that's just like marketing speak, or you're just like trying to like make a point, or you're just like saying nonsense to get things out there. And then sometimes you're like, oh no, that's it. That's a big part of our job. That is like what we see every day. So what's the idea? What do we see more and more? And it's only something that comes with experience. Us both being about 10 years in, a big part of our job is advising clients not to do things. You don't need to open that next investment account. You don't need that complicated insurance product that it takes 50 pages to explain how it works. You don't need to buy the vacation home because you like to travel. You don't need another thing to manage, think about. Simplicity is a really cool thing. The wealthier you are, the more you get to have things simplified for you. When most people think about financial advisors, the public thinks a financial advisor's job is to like bring you new products, strategies, ideas. It's the job of a financial salesperson to have a new thing, a new product every time they meet with a client. It's the job of a financial planner to help simplify their client's life and make sure they're not getting involved in stupid things and things that just add more to their plate without providing any value.
On my flight out here, I was listening to a book. I know you read it recently, Risk and Reward by Ben Carlson. At the beginning of the book, he mentioned something around building an investment strategy, right? And he said, it takes a lot of work to build the strategy. And then once the strategy is built, it takes a lot of work not to do anything or deviate from
not to mess it up.
Right, not to mess it up. And that's scary, right? Like it's hard. And we're in a world right now where there's just so much coming at us. I call it fancy finance.
I like that term.
Yeah. In a past life, I worked with a lot of business owners. And business owners in particular get pitched a lot of things. And I remember once I took on a client and he had, no joke, I think like 83 different investment accounts. Some had a couple $1,000s here, some had a couple hundred, some had a lot. He just like, I don't know what to do. Like, I don't know how to handle these things. Tell me the next best strategy I need to do. And I'm like, well, the best strategy we need to do is just simplify. Because for you don't need all these fancy things, because at the end of the day, what are the things that matter most to you? Making work optional at some point. He wanted to save for his kids' education. He wanted to buy a house. And those were the things that mattered most. And so then we could simplify.
Like focus on the basics, on the things that drive 90% of the outcomes. Like there is no universe where somebody needs more than, I would say, 10 positions in portfolio. Direct indexing is a little bit different, but it's still a passive approach. Yeah. And if you own funds or ETFs, you don't need, honestly, more than 5 or 6. There's no reason you need 5 different brokerage accounts. It just, things build up over time. And to your point with the dentist, maybe each thing they did individually made sense.
Yeah.
But then 5 years later, like, well, all of this doesn't really make any sense together. And I didn't have to do any of it. I could have focused on what mattered, and I'd basically be in the same place, but without all of this hassle.
Yeah. So simplify on the things that matter most, I think, is the principle here. I have a friend, an old friend of mine. He's the type of person, I'm sure you have friends like this, but from like a physical health standpoint, he's the type of person who's trying everything, right? Like the random new products and the new supplements and the new regimens and routines that are supposed to improve your health. And he doesn't really work out and he eats like garbage. And so he doesn't really recognize any of those big improvements. Right. Like you just really need to focus on those 2 things And physical health is pretty simple. Eat well, move a lot. That's it. And honestly, from a financial standpoint, it's pretty similar, right? Like focus on the main core principles and you'll be fine. There's just so much stuff. Like we've somehow attached a moral good to adding, and that doesn't necessarily need to be the case. From an investing standpoint, it's like, tell me exactly how, like the best way to mitigate on taxes when you're not like saving enough. You got to start somewhere simple.
That exact idea on a right fit call is kind of the earliest when I'm like, basically, I'm going to be brutally honest to this person, and they're either going to be willing to think a little bit differently than they have and go in a different direction, or we're just not going to be a fit. Meaning they're like, yeah, so I really want to make sure, like I'm thinking about starting a business for taxes, or I want this rental property. They're focused on the thing that's like easiest to think about to avoid spending time on the things that are hard.
I had a friend many years ago who came to me and asked, like he was in a situation where he had extra liquidity and he had another friend who was trying to pitch him some products and stuff like that. And my counsel to him was like, simplify. And I remember he asked me, he said, well, isn't your job as an advisor to like optimize and add good strategies? And I'm curious, like if our job as an advisor is to help people optimize their finances, help them be financially healthy, how do you think simplicity is like a competitive advantage?
First off, you have to have the trust in the advisor that what they're doing is going to make the most sense. But what you said at the beginning, doing nothing or doing the not most exciting thing in the moment is really hard work. I have a client he's been making a lot more money these last 2 years than he did in the beginning of our relationship. And now he's saving a lot more. And like last week, he had like 300,000 we were going to dump in to his accounts. We added like 400,000 last year. And that was not the position that he was in, him and his wife, at the start of our relationship. And I remember last time, it's like a few weeks ago, he's like, hey, is there something else we should be allocating to or investing in beyond what we're doing? And I said, nope, we should keep on building wealth in the same way. We're going to keep building. In his case, we already took care of a lot, like the 529s, the backdoor Roth, the mega. So I'm simplifying even more for this example. We're doing a lot of other things, but with that additional money, we're saving and investing into his brokerage portfolio, his all equity compounding for long-term wealth. Could I bring up, well, we can get involved in this PE alternative asset and we can do this long short position, but would that just serve to make me seem more interesting and exciting? Or would that actually help the client get to the best outcome? Why do we need to make it more complicated? That's where simplicity is key. Investing shouldn't be exciting. It really shouldn't. Financial planning shouldn't be exciting. It's the exact same logic that applies. Getting more exciting and interesting, and inherently it means more risk.
Sure.
And why are we taking on risk that you don't need to take on to achieve the financial goals that you've already built in place? If there's a chance that your $10 can grow to 30, right? Or it can go to 0. If you need that $10 and you need it to grow to 15, why are we taking on that risk? 30 doesn't change the equation. You're in good shape either way, but it has a chance of totally taking you underwater.
Simplicity is a competitive advantage because you're just focusing on the strategy you originally decided on.
And you're sticking to it. It's not set it and forget it, but it's having a system and an approach that allows you to work according to the same principles. John Bogle had one of my favorite quotes about investing, and it takes a second. He said, don't just do something, stand there. And I think it captures investing and financial planning so well. And for John Bogle started Vanguard and really introduced this idea, which sounds kind of obvious now, but of, hey, own the entire market. Don't try to time the market. Don't try to pick, just own things in a tax efficient, low cost way and be invested for a long time. Like he is one of the founding visionaries, and that's how Vanguard got its start at the time. This is really hard for type A successful people to wrap their heads around. And I have an example for myself, but in most things in life, the more effort you put in, the better the outcome. The more you study, the harder you work. The more you work out, the better you eat, the better the results that will be. Work compounds on itself. Investing is one of the only areas where I would argue the opposite is true. The more time you spend on your investments, the more effort you put in, the more you try to do, the worse outcomes you're going to have. And this is actually like proven, and we can probably pull up the study of the more often you look at your accounts historically, the worse performance you have. It's also the reason most investors underperform their own investments. And by that, I mean, they own Fund A, which earns 7%, except they, while owning Fund A, have earned 4%, which shouldn't even be technically possible. Investing is one of the few things that you are best served by building a program that works for you and stepping away. And the whole world, especially right now, is kind of programmed to make sure you don't do that, right? You can go on your phone at any second of any day. How am I doing today? What's the performance? None of it matters to the long-term investor, but the more you try to understand manipulate and do things in investing, the worse historically your outcomes are going to be. And the decisions you don't make are the ones that matter most. Not selling when the market goes down, right? Not panicking. On the flip side, not waiting to invest because you think the market is overvalued. And then you sit out years, like literally 23, 24, right? Market was doing pretty well and it was expensive. And the amount of people that said, well, if the market's so high, I'm going to wait for it to come down and then I'm going to invest. Waiting, right? Thinking you're going to outsmart the market. You're going to wait for the dip, which by the way, when the dip happens, usually it rebounds so fast. That doesn't mean it rebounds so fast like the next day, the next month. But whenever it reaches its actual bottom, most of the time the rebound happens before you would know as an investor, oh, we're at the bottom, I need to reinvest. By the time you have that thought, the market has already moved up. So all these things most people do of trying to guess, trying to time, trying to outsmart works in every other aspect of life. It really doesn't work in investing. And that can be tough for somebody that just thinks they can out effort. I mean, I'm wired like that. They're just going to work harder and the results will come. Here, you need to do nothing once you've built the program, and that's working harder. And it's tough.
Right? It's hard to like ignore the noise because there's so much noise when it comes to finances. A lot of, I think you mentioned like type A investors, right?
Yeah.
Like they're the types to optimize and find new strategies and do those things and add. Why? Because they just think they need to do more. Maybe they're not clear on their strategy. They're not sticking to it. Down the line, we run into a scenario that I've called random acts of finance, right? Like we get to the point where we look back and we're like, what did we just do?
You're just coming up with gold out of nowhere.
I did not come up with that one. That one was from an old coworker. But we look back and we realize like I was doing stuff and they weren't bad things, but it was just kind of random. This is what we do with every new client. I go down the list and we look at their accounts and the things that they have in place. And I just say, why? What's the point of this? What's the purpose of this? And what we often find is like, I don't know.
I literally didn't know I had that account until last Friday.
Right. So then our role as the financial advisor then is to kind of help simplify and say everything has a purpose. That's what we're getting to.
What you're doing is kind of curating that investment. And that's kind of how I see our role for clients more broadly. A financial advisor is one of their biggest roles is as curator. There's so much information out there. Like if you go on LinkedIn tomorrow, somebody's going to tell you to buy gold. Somebody's going to tell you to buy crypto, private equity, insurance. And it's exciting. It can be intoxicating. Even if somebody has a strategy I don't know about and they're making money, right? And everybody lies on social media, right? The Instagram best vacation ever. And they, were upset 90% of the time. But LinkedIn is that for investing in financial planning, right? I love when advisors like, I worked with this client, this happened, then this happened, and then I saved them $400,000 in taxes. Can I see the return where you actually got from it seems like a lot of yada yada. So I write this newsletter and I genuinely view that as part of our job with clients. But we are crafting a message of what matters and what doesn't. What do we need to bring to you because it actually matters and is going to move the ball forward? And what is just noise that don't think about again. Go watch TV tonight. Go on vacation, take care of your kids. These extra things that you hear people talking about don't matter. Financial planning works the same way. When we're talking about financial planning, what is the only reason that anybody engages in financial planning? Why do you do that? Because you are trying to make sure you have enough money to fund all of your financial goals, and you want to spend the least amount of time, energy, and attention doing it. That's it. That is financial planning. It might sound obvious, but when you think about planning, anything that is not solving for that isn't worth thinking about or talking about. If you can articulate how that helps you get to your financial goals and minimizing the amount of time, energy. So if something says, hey, maybe it'll work, maybe it won't, but it's going to add a shitload of time and stress. Well, that's not accomplishing what we need. That might be a complicated insurance product. That could be a rental real estate. That could be a side hustle where you could just focus on making more at your primary and you build a side hustle that saps all of your energy, attention, and then it doesn't actually change the financials that much. But when we laser back to what's important, what are you solving for? That's financial planning. Anything else is a detail. One of my favorite examples of this, and this is from Nick Magli. We both love him and both can't pronounce his name. I apologize. He wrote The Wealth Ladder. He has this rule that if you're contemplating a spending decision and it's less than 0.01% of your net worth, just do it. Like literally don't waste the brain cells thinking about, should I do this? Can I afford this? If it is less than 0.01% of your net worth, you're good. Like the mental energy you're taking by thinking about that decision is actually more detrimental than whatever the potential thing can be. Simplifying your decision tree, right? How you make financial decisions. When I know the amount of hours I work right now is not a healthy thing and shouldn't last forever. But as part of that, when there's something that I can get back, that I can buy back my time, I very rarely think about the cost as just purely a cost. whether that's cleaning my apartment, laundry, really anything, an Uber. I will spend money to buy back my time, because by a landslide, time is the thing I don't have right now. And I want to keep doing what I'm doing, and working and creating more value for clients creates more value for me than trying to cut back on things that don't move the needle in that 0.01%. Simplifying and obsessively curating your own financial life to move forward on the things that matter.
Yeah. I want to share a story that has nothing to do with clients, but it's something in my personal life, and I promise this is relevant. My daughter's 6, and she's starting to like understand money and buying things. And she's also starting to understand being sold things. She is really into like arts and crafts, and famous YouTuber has a service where you can order these boxes and you can build things, and he had a summer promotion. And in that promotion, he had the opportunity to like, hey, we'll fly your family out and you could come build stuff. She didn't understand what a raffle is. She didn't understand that. So she hears that and it's like, I want to buy this kit so I can do that. And I was like, well, do you actually want the kit? She's like, no, I want to go to the YouTuber's place. Anyone who's had a young child who they're trying to explain a life lesson to, sometimes it's difficult. But the principle I live off of in every area of my life, I buy things, I don't get sold them. Right? Meaning I'm the person who's making the decision. They're not trying to sell me with the promotion. And I was trying to explain it to my daughter. Her strategy was, I really want to go somewhere fun. That's what she wanted. That's what she was solving for. And so it took us having a conversation to say like, does this thing that you want to buy actually solve the problem that you want? No. Okay. Well, then let's find something else. And I think we can view our financial decisions through that same lens. Is this the thing that I actually want? Anything I'm reacting to, I constantly reckon back to like, what is the thing I'm solving for in my life? For you, you're in a time, right? Like you need to save on time. So most decisions that you're making are viewed through that lens. And when it comes to our financial decisions, long-term investing, is this going to help me get to retirement, work optional, buy that next house, whatever that is, in a more efficient way that, maybe it's optimizing 0.01% and that's just not worth my time. And that's okay. But we buy things, we are not sold them.
Yeah. Do you think, how well do you think your daughter, if she was in the seat instead of you, would be able to articulate that?
Not at all. Not at all. I literally, right before
it sounded so nice the way you said it. I'm like, I just wonder how much of that is coming across.
It was more of an opportunity for me to learn than it was for her,
right.
I'll be honest. Yeah, we'll work.
Yeah, Dad told me to do this thing, not that thing.
Yeah.
The other part is my mental energy. My wife knows, like, I really don't want to be involved in decision making. I have to make so many decisions here, like in the business and with clients every day, that if I could like avoid being in the decision seat and other parts, that's awesome for me. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm sharing that because every relationship is different, but like, what are the things most important to you? Yeah. Right. All right. I know we're wrapping up, but I did want to get to 2 stories that are kind of in this mode. We recently had a meeting, Karina and I, with a client that they've been a client for a while. And for the first time, they brought up the idea of buying a vacation home. And we said, yeah, we'll run the numbers, like give us a few ranges and we'll show kind of impact and all that. I said, but before we even get there, like we'll do that on a follow-up meeting because they kind of brought this up live in the meeting. I said, just help us understand, like you haven't mentioned this before, like what are you trying to do? Like, and just even backing up for something like it would be international. Croatia. I said, how often would you go there? I said, I'm just trying to get a sense. I said, do you want to travel to other places as well? And I asked, if you bought a place in Croatia and then next year wanted to go to Hawaii, would you feel guilty? Would you feel like, shit, we just bought this vacation home and now we're not using it and now we're spending this money here. I said, like, would you only want to go to Croatia or would that come across your mind? They had like an 8 and a 6-year-old. I said, like, I know you mentioned like the kids are starting to play sports. I knew when I was in high school, I played basketball, believe it or not, 5'7" Jewish kid. And my career ended at high school. I was a decent skier. My family didn't ski for 4 years of high school because I was on the basketball team. And I know a few of my friends had a place in Vermont and they were soccer players. It's not an accident. Like they started playing soccer and it would have been ridiculous for my parents to get a ski house. Not that I was ever like they weren't thinking about that. So I asked them, like, are your kids like starting like, yeah, our daughter's really good at gymnastics. We're traveling a lot. I'm like, I don't know. Like, as you see here in middle school and high school, like how much time are you going to have to get away internationally? You're going to be able to use it in the way that you want. And I said, what are you trying to solve for, right? Like, what do you want? And they're like, we just want to like be able to travel and create memories and experiences with our kids. And I said, like, what if instead of the vacation home, you guys took 50,000, 75, and you could go wherever the heck you want, whenever, as much as you want. Would that satisfy that itch? Or is the vacation home exactly what you want? And by the way, I'd never wanted, like personally, a vacation home just to have a vacation home, but I've always had a dream of having a place in Israel because I want my kids to speak Hebrew and I want them to grow up in both communities. So that's really important. I bring it up because that's something I can't replicate. You can't replicate that by more travel.
Right.
Or you can, but if I know I want to go to the same place and spend summers in one place, well, yeah, it kind of does make sense financially to have a home base because I want to use it as a home base, right? And spend elongated periods there. But if it's, I want to have a vacation home because it sounds like a cool idea, we like to travel, and then you realize you get to it like, well, that didn't really address the thing. And to bring us back to the original point, did it just create more stress? When we're not at the vacation home this year, damn it, the kids played too much sports, we're not gonna be able to get back and we're still paying for it. We weren't trying to talk them out of it, is my point. And they're like, yeah, we were just talking about it out loud. You're probably right. Especially like now isn't even the time. They're like, if for no other reason than our kids are starting to play sports and we have no idea what our life is going to look like in 3 years, that having an international property seems a little, and traveling and being able to drop off the key, like, you know, the last day, that was always my dad's thing. He never wanted a place anywhere other than his primary home, because the idea of you leave a hotel, you sign and you're done and you don't think about it again. Mm-hmm. And he always joked in his first house, like if another light bulb went off, he would just sell it. He would move. He's just not going to fix it, right? Because he knew himself, like that was something he had no time for.
Yeah.
We'll wrap up with that story. For them, they could travel, spend, have all the experiences without adding complexity to their life, which, by the way, for better or worse, a vacation home, any property is complexity. It's just another thing. There are times it makes sense if it moves the ball forward, like it might for me, but there are times it's not. And if we can eliminate that, keep the actual financial life simple, and then just spend more money in the things that matter to you, awesome. And you're going to be thankful for that 5 years down the road.
Yeah. The principle here is know the problem you're solving for. And it does help to have a person that can challenge why you're doing things, right? Like we're advisors. When someone comes to us, they want something, we ask why a lot. But something that's been helpful for me personally, and I've given this to clients, is just get two whys away from the meaning of life. If you're going to make a decision, you just ask why. And you can do this yourself, write it down. You can do this with a spouse, write it down. Like just keep asking why. Eventually you'll get to the meaning of life. And there are going to be other ways to solve for that thing that you're looking for. But I always urge people to just question why.
I love that. Again, another gold mine, not sharing off camera. So what did you say? Ask two whys.
Two whys removed from the meaning of life. Okay. There we go.
I have nothing to add to that. Have a great week. We'll speak to you soon.